Hey guys, how's it going? It's Intangir here. I'm back on Factorio again, and I'm making a video today trying to talk about how to use IVTN, what it's for, Intangir's vanilla train network. It's basically a train routing and management system geared towards grid-type bases where you don't want to have stackers everywhere. There's not a whole lot of real estate in these narrow margins, the way I do my grid bases anyway. I like to have most of my grid available for all the functionality I need for the factory, not a whole bunch of train infrastructure. So the trains, they stick to these narrow areas on the edges, and they park at the stations on the edges as well, and everything else is freed up for functionality, except for you do need a depot somewhere. But yeah, so you don't need stackers anywhere. You basically just have this shared centralized depot as like a shared stacker, and you can have multiple of them. If you run out of space in one, you could take up a whole block of it with them. You could put them all over the place. You can do them however you want. They don't have to be necessarily nearby, and they don't really have to worry about coordinating very much with each other anymore either. But yeah, the main goal is to avoid over-provisioning trains. You don't want to send too many trains out to a location that when they won't be able to do anything, and that's helped substantially with some of the features they added near the end of 1.0, and especially now with 2.0, with things like train limits. That's made things a lot easier, but there's still more functionality you need for like some basic getting things done type functionality with trains. That's going to be included in this. And now it also supports dedicated trains and flex trains. And flex trains can pick up, like in 1.0 of my IVTN, only dedicated trains were supported. But now on this version 2.0 plus, it'll also support flex trains, which will they'll notice if there's supply and demand stations out there for resources that aren't specifically assigned to them, that aren't being handled. They'll run out and take care of it. So what are the main advantages of ITN? As I said, there's no need for stackers. It doesn't take up a whole lot of space, really. You can kind of put a lot of stuff on the margins. It doesn't require any mods. It does work with a lot of mods, though. It will support most mods, I think, no problem, actually, now. You don't even have to do any extra special setup anymore because the only setup you need to do is parameterized. So yeah, it doesn't need mods, but should support mods. No longer needs a big depot computer. I used to have a big depot computer on 1.0, but you no longer need that at all. The depots are super simplistic now, and they don't really need to worry about syncing with each other or anything like that. And it should still work also without space age, but I haven't tested that. I think it'll work on any 2.0 version, even if you aren't using space age, but I'm not really sure about that. I haven't tried it. But yeah, now with parameterized blueprints, it's super easy to set everything up. Let's go ahead and get into that now. All right, so let's get started. First thing you're going to want to do is have a base with some rails in it, and I don't have a great base, and mine's in survival mode, and I don't want to do, I don't want to go creative on it, so I'm just going to use this sandbox here. But yeah, you want to have some sort of rail system already set up with, rails and intersections and stops and that sort of thing. And if you don't have a good rail system of your own, you can get this one narrow tracks rail setup that I have. It's going to be available on the same place as my the IVTN. Sorry about that. Anyway, so I laid some of this out. I keep forgetting that you can just grab the whole book. You can grab a whole book and then tab through them with I think Shift mouse wheel. All right. So some of these have already been offset, and some of them haven't. When you're working with grid snapped blueprints, you can shift them around a little bit. I'll show you how in just a second. Let me plop a few of these down. I think one of them, I guess they're all aligned. So this is the one I have for my depot. I'm going to plop that down. All right. If you do need to change the alignment, like you download this and you don't like the alignment, make sure you use Control and arrow keys to move it. If you change the alignment with Control, it will shift the entire grid for the blueprint. If you use Shift instead, it will move your blueprint relative inside the grid, and then it won't rotate correctly anymore like this. See how now it doesn't rotate correctly anymore, but now it will. So make sure you use Control, because if you use the other one, you get yourself into trouble. And if you do start using Shift on accident and you start misaligning everything super badly, I recommend just re-downloading the blueprint. But yeah, you need a rail system with some signal connections as well. Actually, now you need circuit connections. So I'm only using the red signal, but this one that I have available here has green and red. It tries to take it all the way through your entire base. So anywhere you're laying rail, it'll carry these red and greens for you. And yeah, so now we need IVTN, and I recommend trying to make sure you have the newest version. You can go to the Factorial forums. Oops, which window do I have open here? Oh, here it is. So I've been posting it on Factorial forums. There should be a link on the YouTube video you're watching now, and I already had it open. Whoops, I had too many windows open. But yeah, find my thread on here, and it'll tell you what the latest version is. Right now it's 2.02, and there are some major improvements on the 2.02 version over the 2.01. So make sure to get the latest version if you don't already have it, because there's some major changes, and the sooner you switch over, the easier it'll be to switch, because you probably will have to replace your trains and stuff like that. So yeah, get both of these if you want the rail stuff. That's in this one, but yeah, get this one. I'm going to copy that, and then you can use the import string, paste it in here, and it will give you a whole book. I'm going to throw out this old one. It should mostly be the same, but unfortunately there's an issue importing blueprints with parameters right now, and we're going to have to get into that next. So yeah, I also used to post my blueprints on Factorial Prints, but it doesn't seem to be working anymore for me. I don't know why. I see other people are posting new things, but I cannot. So I'm just going to use the Factorial forums thread and go about it through there. So yeah, next we need to check our download, because hopefully they'll fix this soon, but it's not fixed right now. So you might have to do this on all your blueprints, and it super sucks, and it's not great. You're not going to like it, but I don't know how else to get around it. I mean, I can try and try and fix it and then re-upload it again, but I don't think that's going to make any difference. But basically, it's done something weird with the parameters. So if I just parameterize this for fish, right? Now, and it asked me, even though it's the only question, which, like in a separate window. Normally when there's only one question, it's not supposed to ask you like that. And for some reason, it's marked this as a parameter, and it's not a parameter. It wasn't a parameter in my original. It also added several letters that aren't part of my version at all. And I don't know what these are or why they're here. Because, like, look, you can, like, literally look at the station. This was not here on my version, and neither was this. So I guess those are some sort of defaults that it populated in. And I don't know. It seems like it's confused something to do with the blueprints. So unfortunately, we got to go through and fix those. Basically, go into the parameters section, and if you see a thing that says it's a parameter that's not a parameter, this is not a parameter. It's not even, it doesn't even have a value. So uncheck the parameter and then reselect the item that it was. This was a train car. And then these I don't use, and I don't know why they're here. So I'm going to remove those, and now it shows correctly, and I still have my commodity type there. I'm going to try and replace it and see. Okay, so now we just skip straight to the commodity type question. That's what it's supposed to do. So populate that, and unfortunately you got to do it on all of them, because it's like importing them or exporting them incorrectly. So you got to fix it on all of them. And this is the carts again, and I don't think I use either. Do I use either of these? I don't think I use either of these. It also has double entries for negative numbers, which is super weird. See this one? Negative 7680. Negative 7680, but it's a totally different value. That's another glitch. That I can't get rid of. It's just going to do that. So there's nothing we can do about that. Just ignore that one, I guess. So that one should be fixed now. I'm going to test it. Was that a demand station? And it goes straight to the question. That's good. You only have to do this one time. Once your local copies are fixed, you won't have to do it again unless you re-import the whole blueprint. So I'm going to check this one. It doesn't look like it has extra wrong parameters, so let me go ahead and try and place one, and it goes straight to the question. That's good. And let's see what else. We got this one. I'm going to check this one out, and it doesn't have any parameters. It should be all right. And let me check these out. This one's got the same thing going on. Why is it like this? All right, so I replace that. I don't use any of these at all. Pretty sure. And this one. Oops. Just need to go in here. This one's got the same thing going on. Don't use any of this either. Alright, we're almost done. Hopefully this won't be necessary after they fix whatever's gone wrong with this. I'll be able to post a clean version hopefully, and won't have to do it every time. This is parameterized, but there's only one. This is parameterized. There's only one. And this one is... That's not a parameter. I don't know why it's like that. It's so strange. Alright, so I'm going to fix that and save it. Okay, so hopefully they'll all be good now. So I'm going to remove this. Alright, next step is setting up some depots, right? Let's start with the main depot. This is where the trains will park when they're not in use. I changed, in the recent version I've changed it so there's only one shared depot. It works for everything. It does have a couple of things that not every single type of train needs, but it's just easier to have one type of depot and do it like that. So this also needs to be connected to the network here. So I'm just going to run an extra one of these guys, and make sure you carry the red signal from the main network all the way to your line of poles, and those look connected now. Okay, so that takes care of that one. It should be ready to roll. You don't have to do any special setup on this anymore. It's really handy on this version. Like on 1.0 version, you have to do all this. Oh, that's extra setup. You don't have to do any of that. Next thing we're going to do is another one of the shared station types, the refueling station. Let's go ahead and put one of those down. Trains will require a place to get fuel. I think that they'll just sit there and complain if you don't give them somewhere to get fuel. So make sure to do this, or they'll just sit there and complain. So I've got like a really basic one. You can change this to your liking to, run belts to it or however you want to do it. But for now, it's just as long as fuel's getting on the train. I also pull fuel that I don't want on the train back off the train. So it just makes sure that it's just got only the rocket fuel. All right. Next, let's place some trains. So I've got 3 kind of trains that you can use. There's dedicated item trains. They'll only focus on one type of item, and they'll ignore everything else. But the cool thing about these is that they can go and pick up the types of items even if they're not ready to deliver it yet, and they'll just have it on hand so that they're close by with the product ready to roll when the need arises. And they'll as many of these as you have, they'll just fill up and have as much of it on hand, just dedicated to taking care of it. And then there's fluid trains. Fluid trains are just like the dedicated item trains, but for fluids. They'll just handle, they'll do the exact same thing, but for fluids. So I'm going to plop one of those down, and they're going to go fuel up, and then they should come back. And lastly, and this is a really cool new feature with the 2.0 version. This wasn't really possible to implement before on Factorio Vanilla. Flex trains. The flex trains, they'll be able to get, this is a flex item train, they'll be able to get any type of item that the network has a need for. So they'll notice where there's a need and a supply available, they'll go take care of it unless a dedicated train beats them to it. All right, so those are fueling up, and they're coming back here to park, and they're just going to wait there. All right, so that takes care of the trains. All right, next is we need something for the trains to actually do. So let's give them some supplies to pick up, and we're going to do that with the supply station. I'm going to plop a couple of these down, and they actually have a requirement to be hooked up to the circuit network now. The previous version, like the 1.0 version, always had to have that, but I was trying to avoid having to use it on 2.0. But there's reasons why it ended up becoming necessary. It had to do with the flex trains. If you're not going to use flex trains and you're only going to use dedicated trains, you don't have to connect them to the network. But if you are going to use flex trains at all, you need to connect them to the network. I'm going to put a couple of these down, and I'm just going to make them the same thing so we can test something later. So let's also pipe some supplies into these. Alright, so they'll be loading up, and once they reach a certain threshold, they'll start signaling to the network that they've got supplies. But the main way that they signal now is not necessarily over the wires anymore like they used to have to. Now they just signal by turning the station on. So now it's just turned on because we just hit the threshold. So the station itself turns on, and the trains can detect that directly. And actually, my dedicated train has already gone and started taking care of it. Dedicated trains, again, they can pick up materials even if there's not anywhere to deliver it yet because they're dedicated to that resource type. All right, so next thing we want to do is set up a demand station. Demand stations, request from the network to get something delivered to them. So I'm going to put one right here, and it's going to ask for rocket fuel again. We're just going with rocket fuel. It's got small stack sizes, and I'm just going to put some of these on the end of that. Okay, so this is available. I mean, this is online now, and immediately a train has showed up and started supplying it. This is our dedicated train again. It's on the ball. It'll almost always get the jump on the flex trains because it basically has a head start, unless it's somehow busy. All right, so let's go ahead and set up another one. I'm going to set up a second dedicated item station right here for rocket fuel again. And now that we have two, the flex train should spring into action, and there it goes. It's recognized that there's additional need. It's not being handled, and it springs into action and goes and gets a load so that it can take care of it. All right, so far so good. Let's set up some fluid stations, and those are right here. I've got a fluid supply and a fluid demand. The difference between these and the item ones, they take up a little bit more space. And also, these do not need to be connected to the network. In fact, they should not ever be connected to the network. Because if you do connect one of them to the network, it will confuse the flex trains. There's no such thing as a flex fluid train at this time. There's not any good way to implement it. So I can only support flex item trains. And fluid trains must be dedicated. And this one is... this one doesn't have any product, so let's give it some product. Hook one of these up and give it a bunch of gas. And as soon as it goes on, here comes our train. So it's running off to handle it. We're going to set up a fluid demand station. And again, with the fluid stations, do not connect them to the network. The circuit network here, I'm talking about the circuit network. Do not connect these wires to this network because it will end up sending flex pickup signals to the item flex train, and it will confuse it and it will break it. It won't be able to handle the items. Hopefully in the future they'll add a something into the interrupt conditions here to make it where you can do a test that says has cargo capacity for a wildcard item, like one of these things, to test whether or not it's a fluid car, a fluid train or an item train. If there was a condition in there for that, you'd be able to easily support both flex fluid and flex item trains. But right now, I would have to do it much more, it would be a less advantageous way to implement it. I'd have to have a separate type of depot. I don't want to have two different type of depots anymore. It's really convenient to just be able to have one kind of depot shared by everything. And so far, the only one that can't do it is those fluid flex trains, because we can't tell the difference programmatically, either by condition or circuits. So I just don't have it supported. But yeah, that's the only big main limitation I know of at the moment. Hopefully they'll add that. Hopefully they'll fix the situation with blueprints not exporting or importing correctly. But otherwise, thanks for watching. I hope this was helpful to you. Please like and possibly subscribe if you're into this kind of content. Feel free to comment and share your experience with any of the issues you're running into if you're using it. And ideally on YouTube. I get notifications on YouTube, but I don't pay any attention to notifications on the Factorio forum. So if you want to reach me, just message in the comments. All right, have a good one. See you next time. Bye.